So this question's about Nick for Left 4 Dead 2. So Nick, I'm not going to show the concept art for him because no one's ever posted the real concept art that sold him. So he came from the artist side. I forget which artist presented him, but it was the white suit and it actually had Johnny Knoxville head on it. That's why I was saying I don't have that concept art. So one of the shortcuts we would use at Valve when we wanted to talk character and personality is we would use famous people's heads on the characters to start, because you wanted to just to present this attitude. And Johnny Knoxville is a different kind of attitude and personality. And if you are familiar with the games, Ellis has a lot more of that, just a lower energy because he has a southern version of that. So I didn't really want to bring that. And I like the idea of this character that thinks everybody else is a fool, right? He's not mean spirited and like he's evil, but he just thinks you're a sucker. Like, if you don't take something that you can take, you're a sucker for not taking it. I don't know if you know people like that, but I know plenty of people like that, right? Who just think the system exists for them to exploit and take advantage of. Now, for writing, the nice thing with the character is sarcasm lets you take conversations out of the air. So one of the things with Left 4 Dead is, right, as you're running along and you see something, all of a sudden the conversation has to start. And now players are used to it and we kind of just do it. But it helps with the sarcastic character because they're commenting and adding themselves into it versus just saying, "Look, let's cross the bridge," right? It's just like, great, we got to cross this bridge. This whole city does nothing but bridges, right? Like, all of a sudden it builds the world for you in a whole better way than just, let's cross that bridge. So I like sarcasm. And that really comes through with that character. And then, you go in and you get the actor working on it. And you was great. He's the only person who had ever played Left 4 Dead 1. And so out of the actors, so that he wanted to be in the game. He had played it in his trailer, single player, when he was working on one of his TV shows. That guy's in a lot of TV shows. And so he really fell in love with the game and wanted to be in it. And so he was really great because we could communicate with him really quickly, like shortcuts. It was just like, hey, yeah, it's the witch. And he's like, yeah, I know the witch. I know how to deal with this. And so that was really fun. And he was really good, except he brings his own energy and he is really no nonsense. He is never, ever going to laugh. He is not, we tried to get him to ad-lib laugh. I talked about that before where I tried to get him to do a Beavis and Butthead laugh and he wouldn't. And it's just like not in him. And that's fine. That's fine. Like everybody's got their place. And he's really, really good at the Nick stuff, right? Which is the observational, dry kind of, sarcasm there. And I think that works really, really well for him. And that lets us then use his character to talk about things and talk about other people. And he also has been a part of gangs and groups, right? And so he has that of like, even if Alice drives him a little nuts, there's a little bit of like, hey, I'm making fun of you. This is my love language. I want you to know that I care about you, right? So there's some of that comes through, and I think that's some of the actor as well. And it's always like you work with the actor and you kind of build it up from there. And that was a really fun character, except, man, recording him. So a lot of other actors, they want to take a lot of time. They want to talk about it or whatever. He's like, I got places to go. I know I got 4 hours here. I will stay the whole full 4 hours, but come on, let's go. It's always just like, super intense, super intense. And so you had to kind of prepare for that, where like other actors, it was a lot easier doing the recording because they weren't so intense and putting you on the spot, which is fine. Like he's a guy who does a lot of stuff and this is how he does it because he is intense and he is always on and he is just good, right? And so, yeah, he was really fun. He's an actor I would work with again in a heartbeat. Sorry, to your point, I don't think there's a lot of Tony Stark in him. Tony Stark is actually in Lance, another character for the Anacrusis, that are similar but different because Lance is super rich and he's never had to be sarcasm. Like sarcasm really isn't in him as much as like obliviousness, and that is almost the same kind of thing, but it's different, right? Like, so Nick would tease somebody, Lance would never tease anybody because he's never not been in power. And so that's like just a different kind of vibe to me. And it's really close, and I think people think they're the same. But when you write for them, somebody who has never had to be sarcastic because they've always been in charge and always been in power and have always been rich, just behave differently and use different language and use different language constructs like sarcasm versus somebody who is come from the bottom up, who's always hustling, who's had to put on fake veneer when dealing with people above them and then kind of goads and diminishes people beneath him, right? So like Nick is probably not the greatest person to actually hang out with in real life. He's just funny. Also, side note, Nick, back in the day for ratings, you had to put in every swear word you were ever going to have, and you had to put it in a document and send it to them. And we weren't sure what we were going to do. So at one point, we just had him say different versions of like fat ass, stupid ass, dumb ass, like whatever. Just the word ass is like 50 things in there, and he'll just occasionally spurt one of them out now because let me put him in the game because